The message came on a Tuesday morning, and it changed everything. Ambassador Vexroth stood in the center of the United Earth Council chamber. He was tall, almost 8 feet, with gray skin that looked like wet stone. His 4 eyes moved slowly across the room, looking at each human representative with something close to boredom. Behind him, 2 guards stood still as statues. They carried weapons that could level buildings. "You have 30 standard days," Vexroth said. His voice was deep and cold. 3 of your colony worlds will be transferred to the Orion Alliance. Kepler 7, New Helsinki, and Proxima Station. These worlds contain resources that belong to the greater galactic community. You will remove your populations. You will leave all infrastructure intact. This is not a request. The year was 2347. Humanity had spread to 12 worlds across the stars. They had built cities on distant planets. They had raised children under alien suns. For 200 years, they had grown and expanded, believing they had earned their place among the stars. They were wrong. The Orion Alliance had watched them the way a farmer watches insects in his field. 7 ancient species, united for 60,000 years, ruled the Orion arm with absolute power. They had conquered hundreds of younger races. Some they enslaved. Some they destroyed. Most simply surrendered and accepted their place at the bottom. Councilwoman Elena Vasquez rose from her seat. She was 63 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too much. Her brother had died building the colony on New Helsinki. Her daughter lived there now, with 2 grandchildren Elena had never met in person. "And if we refuse?" she asked. Vexroth made a sound that might have been laughter. "No species refuses. The mathematics are simple. We have 10,000 warships. You have fewer than 300. Your weapons are primitive. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Refusal is not a logical option." "That was not my question," Elena said. "I asked what happens if we refuse." The ambassador's 4 eyes narrowed. "Then we will take what we want. Your species will be reduced to a manageable population. Your worlds will be cleansed. Your history will become a warning to others." He paused. "Is that clear enough?" The chamber fell silent. Every representative understood what those words meant. Genocide, the end of everything humanity had built. The death of billions. Admiral Helena Vasquez, Elena's younger sister, stood near the back of the room. She wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's Fleet Command. 40 years of service had left marks on her face, but her back was straight and her voice was steady. "May I speak?" she asked. Elena nodded. Helena walked forward until she stood directly in front of Vexroth. She was less than half his height, but she did not look up at him. She looked through him. "You have made a study of us," she said. "Your intelligence reports are thorough. You know our ship counts, our weapon capabilities, our population distribution. You know where our weaknesses are. You know we cannot defeat your fleet in direct combat." Vexwraith's mouth curled into something like a smile. "Then you understand your position." "No," Helena said. "You don't understand yours? You studied our technology. You counted our ships. You measured our resources. But you never studied us. You never learned what humans do when everything is taken from them. You never asked why we are still here after so many wars, so many disasters, so many moments when we should have died." She stepped closer, close enough to smell the alien scent of his skin. "We don't surrender," she said. "We don't kneel. We don't die quietly. You can burn our worlds. You can kill our children. But you will never break us. And for every one of us you kill, we will make you pay a price so high that your grandchildren will wake screaming from dreams of Earth." Vexroth stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, a wet and ugly sound. Brave words from a primitive species. I have heard such words before. From the Kethanar, from the Hollow Ones, from the people of the Singing Dark. Do you know where those species are now, Admiral? Dead, Helena said. Extinct, Vexroth corrected. Their worlds are mining colonies. Their names are forgotten. Their brave words mean nothing. He turned and walked toward the door. His guards followed. 30 days, he said without looking back. Choose extinction or submission. There is no third option. The door closed behind him. For a long moment, no one spoke. The weight of the moment pressed down on everyone in the room. This was the end, they all knew. One way or another, nothing would ever be the same. Elena Vasquez stood. Her voice was quiet, but clear. We will vote, she said. All in favor of surrendering our worlds to the Orion Alliance, raise your hand. No hands rose. All in favor of resistance. Every hand in the room went up. Every single one. Elena looked at her sister. How long do we have? Helena's face was grim. Not long enough. But we don't need to win the first battle. We just need to survive it. We need to show them that the cost of victory will be higher than they can imagine. Can we do that? Helena thought of her niece on New Helsinki. She thought of the children who would grow up in bomb shelters, learning to fight before they learned to read. She thought of the price that would be paid in blood and fire and grief. I don't know, she said honestly. But we have no choice. We are human. Surrender is not in our nature. Far across the galaxy, in a command center larger than most cities, High Commander Zorveth received the transmission. He read the human response 3 times, certain there was some error in translation. They refuse, his aide said, confusion in his voice. They actually refuse. Zorveth made a sound of amusement. In 60 years of military service, he had never seen a species choose extinction over submission. It was fascinating in a way. Like watching an insect try to fight a star. Prepare the fleet, he said. 500 ships should be more than sufficient. Schedule the campaign for immediate departure. How long do you estimate, Commander? Zorveth considered the question. Humans were primitive, but they had spread across multiple worlds. It would take time to cleanse each one. 3 rotations, he said. Perhaps 4, if they hide well. But the outcome is certain. The mathematics do not lie. He returned to his other duties, already forgetting about the small species that had chosen to die. He would remember them soon enough. The Alliance fleet arrived at New Helsinki on a clear morning. 500 warships filled the sky like metal clouds, blocking out the sun. On the ground, 7 million humans looked up and saw death coming for them. Commander Thalvex led the ground forces. He had conquered 11 worlds in his career. Each conquest had followed the same pattern. The primitive species would resist briefly, realize they could not win, and surrender. Then the real work would begin, sorting the useful from the useless, establishing control, extracting resources. He expected New Helsinki to be no different. His dropships landed in the fields outside the capital city. 10,000 soldiers, the finest the Alliance had to offer, armed with weapons that could cut through steel like paper. They formed into perfect lines and began their march. The city was silent. No defenders at the walls. No military vehicles. No resistance at all. They have fled, his second officer said. Cowards. Thalvex frowned. Something felt wrong. The intelligence reports had shown a population of 7 million. Where were they? They entered the city streets. Buildings stood empty. Stores were abandoned. Food still sat on tables in restaurants. It was as if everyone had simply vanished. Search the buildings, Thalvex ordered. Find them. His soldiers spread out. Squads of 10 moved through the empty streets, kicking in doors, scanning for life signs. The first explosion came 3 minutes later. A building collapsed on a squad, killing all 10 soldiers instantly. Before anyone could react, gunfire erupted from windows, from rooftops, from holes in the ground. Humans appeared from nowhere, fired their weapons, and vanished again. In the first hour, Thalvex lost 200 soldiers. He called for air support. Ships descended and began burning the buildings where the attacks came from. The humans simply moved to new positions. They knew their city. They knew every tunnel, every basement, every hidden path. By the end of the first day, Thalvex had lost 800 soldiers. He had not captured a single human. "This is not possible," he said to his officers that night. "They are farmers, teachers. They have no military training. They fight like they have nothing to lose," one officer said quietly. "Everyone has something to lose." "Perhaps," the officer said, "but they fight like they don't care." The second day was worse. A group of children, none older than 12, led a patrol into a trapped building. The explosion killed 40 soldiers. The children died too, but they died smiling. An old woman walked into a supply depot with explosives strapped to her body. She took out 100 soldiers and a month's worth of ammunition. A young man captured a communications officer and learned the Alliance frequencies. For 3 days, he broadcast false orders that sent patrols into ambush after ambush. Thalvex sent a report to High Command. The humans do not behave like a conquered species. They do not flee. They do not hide. They do not negotiate. They fight from buildings, from tunnels, from the bodies of their own dead. When we kill one, 3 more appear. This is not rational warfare. I do not understand what we are facing." High Command told him to continue. Victory was certain. The mathematics did not lie. In orbit above New Helsinki, Captain James Okonkwo commanded the ESS Defiance. It was an old ship built 30 years ago, designed for patrol duty, not combat. Against the Alliance fleet, it was less than nothing. But James Okonkwo had not joined the fleet to live forever. He gathered his crew, 200 men and women who had volunteered to stay when evacuation ships left the system. "We cannot defeat them," he told them. "We all know this. Our weapons cannot pierce their shields. Our engines cannot outrun their ships. In a fair fight, we die in the first minute." He smiled, and there was something wild in his eyes. "So we will not fight fair." The Defiance powered up its engines and began moving toward the Alliance flagship, a massive vessel called the Eternal Victory. It was 10 times the size of the human ship, carrying 8,000 crew members and enough firepower to destroy a planet. "Human vessel, you are ordered to stop and surrender," the Alliance commander broadcast. "Resistance is pointless." Okonkwo did not respond. The Defiance kept coming. "Human vessel, you will be destroyed." Still no response. The Defiance accelerated. The Alliance ships opened fire. Plasma bolts tore through the human vessel's shields, ripped holes in its hull. Bodies were sucked into space. Fires burned through the corridors. The Defiance did not stop. It did not slow down. It aimed directly at the Eternal Victory's engine section. "They're going to ram us," someone shouted on the Alliance bridge. "Impossible. No species does that. It's suicide." But the humans did not care about survival. They cared about the price. The Defiance struck the Eternal Victory at full speed. At the moment of impact, Captain Okonkwo detonated the ship's reactor core. The explosion lit up the sky over New Helsinki. For a moment, the people on the ground thought a new sun had been born. Then they saw the debris falling, and they understood. 200 humans had died, but they had taken 8,000 Alliance soldiers with them, and the greatest warship in the fleet was gone. Commander Thalvex watched the debris fall. He had seen 1,000 battles. He had never seen anything like this. A species that traded their lives at a ratio of 40-1 and considered it victory. That night, he sent another message to High Command. We need more ships. These humans, they are not like the others. They do not calculate cost and benefit. They do not measure their lives against ours. They simply fight. I am beginning to believe they would rather die than kneel. High Commander Zorvith received the message in his command center. He read it slowly, and for the first time, something cold moved in his stomach. He had studied 1,000 species. He had learned their patterns, their weaknesses, their breaking points. Every intelligent creature had a survival instinct. Every species, when faced with certain destruction, would choose submission over death. But these humans, he pushed the feeling aside. It was just fear, nothing more. The mathematics were still certain. Humans were primitive. Their worlds would fall. Their species would be broken. He authorized the full fleet. 10,000 ships. Enough firepower to burn every human world to ash. If they want to die, he said to his aide, we will give them their wish. But deep in his mind, in a place he did not want to examine, a small voice whispered, what if dying is not what they fear? What if they fear something else? What if surrender is worse than death to them? He silenced the voice. It did not matter. Numbers always won in the end, not always. The full Alliance fleet arrived like a wave of darkness across human space. 10,000 ships, more firepower than humanity had ever imagined. Colony after colony fell. Kepler to 7, Proxima Station, the outer settlements. One by one, the lights of human civilization went dark. Earth itself burned. Plasma bombs fell on cities that had stood for centuries. London, Tokyo, New York, Cairo, the great capitals of humanity became craters. Billions died in the first month. Billions more fled to shelters underground, to caves, to anywhere the Alliance could not easily reach. High Commander Zorvith declared victory. Human military forces had been destroyed. Their governments had collapsed. Their fleet was scattered debris floating in space, but the war was not over. The humans simply refused to accept it. On occupied New Helsinki, a 12-year-old girl named Mei Chun lived in the basement of a destroyed school. Her parents had died in the first bombing. Her brother had been taken to a labor camp. She was alone, hungry, and small. She was also very angry. Mei had learned chemistry from her mother, who had been a teacher. In the ruins of the school, she found chemicals, cleaning supplies, old laboratory equipment. She mixed and measured and tested, working by candlelight while Alliance patrols walked the streets above Dot. It took her 3 weeks to build her first. Bomb. The Alliance ammunition depot stood in what had been a shopping center. Guards patrolled the perimeter, confident that no threat remained on this broken world. They did not notice the small girl walking toward them with a backpack. Mei got within 20 feet of the main entrance before the guards finally saw her. By then, it was too late. The explosion destroyed the depot and 200 Alliance soldiers. Mei Chun died instantly. She was 12 years old. Her story spread through the resistance networks like fire. A child had done what armies could not. A child had hurt them. Other children began to follow her example. The Alliance found themselves fighting enemies who had not yet learned to be afraid of death. Admiral Helena Vasquez received news of Mei's sacrifice in the asteroid belt, where she hid with 17 surviving ships. It was all that remained of Earth's fleet. 17 ships against 10,000. The mathematics said she had already lost. Helena had never been good at mathematics. We attack tonight, she told her captains. Attack what? One asked. We can't win a battle against them. We're not fighting a battle. Helena said. We're fighting a war. There's a difference. Battles are won with strength. Wars are won with will. And we have more will than they can imagine. Her small fleet struck a supply convoy that night. 30 ships carrying food and ammunition for the occupation forces. Helena's ships appeared from the asteroid shadows, fired everything they had, and vanished before the Alliance could respond. 12 supply ships destroyed. Then they were gone. She did it again 3 days later. A communications relay this time. Then a fuel depot. Then an officer transport carrying high-ranking commanders. Each attack was small. Each attack was meaningless in the grand scale of things. But together, they told a story. The humans were not defeated. The humans were still fighting. The humans would never stop. On occupied Earth, resistance cells formed in every city, every shelter, every hidden corner. Factory workers sabotaged equipment. Doctors poisoned medical supplies meant for Alliance troops. Engineers built weapons from garbage and debris, got an old man in. Beijing walked into Alliance headquarters with a smile on his face and a bomb in his coat. He killed himself and 50 officers. A group of teenagers in Buenos Aires learned to hack Alliance communications. They spread false information, sent patrols into traps, turned soldiers against each other. A woman in Moscow, pregnant with her first child, drove a truck full of explosives into an Alliance barracks. She left a note for her unborn son. I am sorry I will not see you grow, but I will die free, and you will live free. This is my gift to you. The Alliance controlled human space on paper. In reality, they controlled nothing. Every world bled them. Every day brought new losses. Soldiers began refusing deployment to human worlds. Officers reported nightmares, breakdowns, soldiers who simply stopped fighting and let the humans kill them. A word spread through Alliance ranks. Kethver. It meant the unbreakable in the old tongue. It was not meant as a compliment. It was meant as a warning. High Commander Zorveth received reports every day. The numbers made no sense. His forces outnumbered the humans 1,000 to 1. His technology was centuries ahead. By every measure, victory was complete, but his casualties kept climbing. His soldiers kept dying. His occupation kept failing. They are not rational, he said to his advisors. They sacrifice themselves for nothing. They die accomplishing nothing. What is wrong with them? Perhaps, one advisor said carefully, they do not see it as nothing. Perhaps they see something we cannot. What could be worth this? What could be worth the death of their entire species? No one had an answer. On occupied Earth, in the ruins of Chicago, a woman named Sarah taught children to read by candlelight. The school was a bombed-out building with no roof. The books were salvaged from rubble. The children were orphans, all of them, their parents dead or taken. Tonight, she was teaching them history. Human history. Long ago, she said, there was a place called Thermopylae, a narrow pass between the mountains and the sea, and a great empire sent its army to conquer a small country called Greece. The children listened. Outside, Alliance patrols passed. Inside, the candle flickered. 300 soldiers stood in that pass. Just 300 against an army of millions. They knew they could not win. They knew they would die. But they stood anyway. They held the pass for 3 days. And when they finally fell, they had shown the world something important. What? A small boy asked. That some things are worth dying for. That courage matters more than numbers. That a free person fighting for their home is worth 100 soldiers fighting for conquest. She closed the book. The Greeks won that war, eventually. Not because they were stronger, because they refused to give up. And that is what we must do now. We must refuse to give up. We must refuse to kneel. We must show them that humans cannot be conquered. Not ever. Not while a single one of us draws breath. The children nodded. They were too young to fully understand. But they understood enough. They understood that they were human. And humans do not surrender. In her hidden base in the asteroids, Admiral Helena Vasquez looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Alliance was gathering its strength for the final push. Somewhere out there, Zorvith was planning the extinction of her species. She thought of Mei Chun, who had died at 12. She thought of the pregnant woman in Moscow. She thought of the 300 at Thermopylae. We will win, she said quietly. Not because we are strong, because we cannot imagine losing. And that is something they will never understand. The long night continued, but dawn was coming. And when it came, the Alliance would learn what humans truly were. 3 years of occupation. 3 years of death and fire and resistance. 3 years of bleeding the Alliance one cut at a time. High Commander Zorvith sat in his command center, reading reports he did not want to believe. His forces had killed millions of humans. They had destroyed cities, shattered armies, earned worlds. By every logical measure, the war should have ended years ago. But humans kept fighting, and his army was falling apart. Troop morale had collapsed. Soldiers refused to deploy to human worlds. Officers requested transfers to any other sector. The 7 species of the Alliance, united for 60,000 years, had begun to argue. This war was costing too much. These primitives were not worth the price. We should simply destroy their worlds entirely, one advisor suggested. Burn everything. Leave nothing alive. We have tried, Zorvith said. They hide underground. They hide in asteroids. They hide in places we cannot reach. And for every 1,000 we kill, 1,000 more appear. It is as if they reproduce through death itself. He did not understand. He could not understand. His species had evolved to survive. Survival was the highest value, the foundation of all logic. Surrender was simply a form of survival. Any rational creature would choose submission over extinction. But humans were not rational. Humans were something else entirely. Deep in the asteroid belt, in a station hidden from all sensors, Project Prometheus reached completion. For 3 years, human scientists had worked in secret. They had captured Alliance weapons and taken them apart. They had studied technology centuries ahead of their own. They had learned its secrets, found its weaknesses, and built something new. Admiral Helena Vasquez received the message. Prometheus is ready. She gathered her captains. The 17 ships had grown to 43, built in secret from salvaged parts and stolen technology. It was still nothing against 10,000 Alliance warships. But Helena did not need to defeat the fleet. She needed to break its will. In 6 hours, she said, we launched the counteroffensive. Every resistance cell on every occupied world will rise simultaneously. Every hidden ship will attack. Every weapon we have been saving will be used. What about the orbital platforms? A captain asked. They'll bomb the resistance from space. Helena smiled. They won't have time, because we're going to give them something else to worry about. She activated a display. It showed the Alliance command structure. Zorvith's flagship at the center, surrounded by his primary fleet. Project Prometheus has given us 3 things. First, weapons that can pierce Alliance shields. Second, ships that can match Alliance speed. Third, a way to appear anywhere we want without warning. The captain stared at her. We have jump drives now. Stolen, reverse-engineered, improved. The Alliance thinks we are trapped in this asteroid belt. They are wrong. We can be anywhere. We can strike anywhere. She pointed at Zorvith's flagship. Tonight, we take the head of the snake. At midnight, the galaxy changed. On every occupied world, resistance fighters emerged from hiding. They attacked military bases, command centers, supply depots. They died by the thousands, but they took Alliance soldiers with them. And for the first time, they had real weapons. Prometheus devices that burned through Alliance armor like paper. The occupation forces panicked. This was supposed to be over. The humans were supposed to be broken. Where had these weapons come from? Where had this coordination come from? In space, Alliance ships scrambled to respond. They spread out to support their ground forces, leaving Zorvath's flagship exposed. Helena's fleet appeared from nowhere, 43 ships against 100. Terrible odds, but better than before. And the humans had surprise. The humans had new weapons. The humans had 3 years of rage burning in their hearts. The battle lasted 2 hours. When it ended, 30 human ships were destroyed. But so was Zorvath's fleet. So was his flagship. Sergeant Maria Santos led the boarding party. She had grown up on New Helsinki in a family of farmers. Her parents had died in the first attack. Her husband had died holding a position so others could escape. Her daughter had been killed by Alliance soldiers for throwing a rock at a patrol. She had nothing left to lose. Nothing left but revenge. The Alliance Marines fought hard, but they were not prepared for humans who did not care about survival. Maria's team cut through them, room by room, corridor by corridor, until they reached the command center. Zorvath stood in the center of the room. Around him, his officers were dead or surrendering. He looked at Maria with his 4 eyes, and for the first time in his life, he felt something he had never known before. Fear. "I surrender," he said. "I am a valuable prisoner. Your leaders will want to negotiate. There are protocols for this. Civilized species do not." "Civilized?" Maria stepped closer. Her armor was covered in blood, none of it her own. "You came to our worlds. You killed our children. You burned everything we loved. And you talk about civilization? This is not rational. My death accomplishes nothing. Your leaders will. I don't care what my leaders want," Maria said. "I'm not here for them. I'm here for my daughter." Her name was Alana. She was 7 years old. She liked to draw pictures of flowers. "Do you understand? Do you understand what you took from us?" Zorvath opened his mouth to speak. He never got the chance. The broadcast of his death reached every Alliance world within hours. Every occupied human world. Every ship in the fleet. The galaxy watched as the supreme commander of the Orion, Alliance, died at the hands of a species he had called primitive. Admiral Helena Vasquez transmitted a message on all frequencies. Her face was tired, lined with years of war and grief. But her eyes were blazing. "This is Admiral Helena Vasquez of the United Earth Fleet. For 3 years you have occupied our worlds. You have killed our people. You have burned our cities. You believed we would surrender. You believed we would kneel. You were wrong. We are coming now. Every world you hold, we will take back. Every station, every ship, every soldier. We are coming, and we will not stop. We cannot stop. We do not know how. You studied our technology and found us primitive. You studied our numbers and found us weak. You never studied our history. You never learned what we do when everything is taken from us. We survive. We adapt. We fight. And we win. Not because we are stronger. Because we cannot imagine defeat. Because surrender is worse than death to us. Because we would rather burn the galaxy to ashes than live on our knees. You have one chance. Leave our space. Return to your worlds. Never come back. If you refuse, we will follow you to the edge of the universe. We will tear down everything you have built. We will make you regret the day you first heard the name human. This is not a threat. This is a promise, and humans always keep their promises. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was soft. Do not challenge humans. Survival is not assured. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, the Alliance began to crumble, and humanity began to rise. The Alliance fell in pieces. First, the outer colonies. Alliance governors fled as human forces approached. They had seen the broadcasts. They had heard what happened to Zorvith. They did not want to be next out in the secondary worlds. Resistance movements that had been crushed years ago suddenly returned, stronger than before. Local species that had accepted Alliance rule for centuries began to question. If humans could resist, why couldn't they? The 7 races of the Alliance had been united for 60,000 years. It took 6 months to tear them apart. They blamed each other for the failure. Old hatreds resurfaced. The Velkari withdrew their fleets. The Hollow Ones demanded new leadership. 2 races sued for separate peace with humanity. Then a third. Then a fourth. Admiral Helena Vasquez watched the collapse from the bridge of her new flagship, the ESS Defiance II, named for Captain Okonkwo's ship, named for the spirit that would not die. They're falling apart, her aide said, wonder in his voice. We didn't even have to invade. They're destroying themselves. They were always going to, Helena said. Their alliance was built on conquest, on the idea that strength makes right. When they met something that wouldn't break, they had nothing left. No other way to understand the universe. She thought of all the lives lost. Billions of humans dead. Worlds burned. Children who would never grow up. The pregnant woman in Moscow, who had died so her son could live free. Her son had survived. He was 7 years old now, living with relatives in the rebuilt city of New Helsinki. His name was David. Helena had never met him, but she had seen pictures. He had his mother's eyes. What do we do now? Her aide asked. Do we invade their space? Finish what they started? Helena considered the question. There was a part of her that wanted revenge. A part that wanted to burn their worlds the way they had burned hers. A part that wanted them to feel what humanity had felt. But that part was not what made humans strong. No, she said, we're not like them. We don't conquer. We don't enslave. We defend what's ours, and we leave others to find their own way. But after everything they did, we survived. That's enough. That has to be enough. The final surrender came 6 months later. On the Alliance homeworld of Kethrin Prime, the remaining leaders gathered in a chamber that had witnessed 60,000 years of conquered species begging for mercy. This time, they were the ones begging. Admiral Vasquez attended, flanked by the survivors. Soldiers who had fought in the tunnels of New Helsinki. Scientists who had built the Prometheus weapons. Children who had grown up in occupation and learned that freedom must be taken. Maria Santos stood at her right hand. She had lost everything in the war. Her family, her home, her old life. But she had also found something. A purpose, a meaning, a reason to keep living. The Alliance. Leaders offered everything they had. Territory, resources, technology, reparations that would take centuries to pay. They offered their own lives, if Helena wanted them. She did not want them. We want one thing, she said. We want you to remember. She held up a small device. On every world in the former alliance, we will build a monument. A black stone pillar. It will carry the same words in every language, including all 7 of yours. And those words will stand for as long as stone stands. She activated the device. Text appeared, floating in the air. They challenged the humans of Earth. They believed numbers determined strength. They believed weapons determined victory. They believed submission was inevitable. They were wrong. This monument stands as a warning to all who would follow. Do not challenge humans. Survival is not assured. The Alliance leaders read the words in silence. They had no response. What could they say? Helena Vasquez turned and walked out of the chamber. She did not look back. 100 years passed. The galaxy changed. The Alliance was gone, replaced by smaller nations that traded and sometimes fought but never conquered. Humanity spread further, building new worlds, reaching new stars. The scars of the war slowly healed, but the monuments remained. Black stone pillars on 1,000 worlds, standing silent in the wind and rain and snow. A reminder of what had happened. A warning of what would happen again if anyone tried. On Earth, in a small town that had been rebuilt 3 times, an elderly woman sat in a garden and watched the sunset. Her name was Elena, named for a woman who had stood up to an alien ambassador 107 years ago. She had been 5 years old when the war ended. She remembered the occupation, barely. She remembered the day the Alliance ships finally left. A young alien came to visit her, a scholar sent to study the species that had broken an empire. She was Velkari, from one of the races that had once been part of the Alliance. Her people had learned in the years since to respect humans, to fear them even. I am writing a history, the scholar said, of the war, of your people. I have read the records. I have seen the footage, but I do not understand something. Elena smiled. She was old now, her hair white, her hands spotted with age, but her eyes were still sharp. Ask, she said. Why did you fight? The mathematics said you could not win. Your own generals knew this. Your own leaders knew this. Logic demanded surrender. How did you choose to resist when resistance was impossible? Elena was quiet for a long moment. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors of gold and red. You're asking the wrong question, she said finally. I don't understand. You assume we calculated the odds. You assume we measured our chances and chose to fight anyway. But that's not what happened. We never asked if we could win. We only knew we couldn't lose. The scholar's eyes widened. I don't understand the difference. No, Elena said gently. Your kind never did. That's why you lost. She looked up at the sky. The first stars were appearing, pinpoints of light in the darkness. Stars that had once belonged to those who thought humanity weak. Winning and losing, she continued. These are outcomes, results. They happen after the fight is over. But for us, losing was never possible. Not because we were strong, not because we had better weapons or smarter generals, but because losing meant giving up, and we simply couldn't do that. It wasn't a choice. It was who we were. But millions died. Billions. Your species nearly went extinct. Yes, Elena said. And every one of them died fighting. Every one of them died free. Do you know what the alternative was? A life on our knees. Our children growing up as slaves. Our culture erased, our history forgotten, our species broken. She shook her head. That was never going to happen. Not because we could prevent it through strength, but because we refused to accept it. The moment we accepted it, even in our minds, we would have already lost. So we never accepted it. We kept fighting. We kept hoping. We kept believing that somehow, some way, we would survive. The scholar was silent for a long time. I think I understand, she said finally. Your strength was not physical. It was something else. Something we could not measure. Will, Elena said. Spirit. Stubbornness. Call it whatever you like. Humans are not the strongest species. We are not the smartest. We are not the fastest or the longest lived. But we have something that no one else seems to have. We cannot give up. We do not know how. She smiled, and in that smile was the weight of 100 years. The grief of billions lost. The joy of victory. The peace of a war finally ended. Your people learned this the hard way, she said. I hope you never have to learn it again. The scholar rose to leave. At the door, she paused. One more question. The words on the monuments. Do not challenge humans. Survival is not assured. Who wrote them? Elena's smile widened. A woman named Helena Vasquez. My grandmother's sister. She led our fleet through the long night. She took our broken ships and turned them into a weapon that shattered your alliance. And when she died, she asked for one thing, that those words be put on her grave. Are they? Yes, along with one more line. Something she said to me once when I was very young. I asked her how she knew we would win, how she found the strength to keep fighting when everything seemed lost. Elena looked up at the stars one more time. She said, we didn't win because we were certain of victory. We won because we were certain we would never give up. And that certainty broke them before their weapons ever could. The scholar left. The sun finished setting, and Elena sat alone in her garden, surrounded by the peace that her ancestors had bought with their blood. Above her, the stars shone. Stars that remembered dot stars that would never forget.